Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us to our show, Reflect and Reset with Maria and Gina. And today we have a very special show. You know that our goal, Gina and I, yes, my business partner, my partner in crime, yes, we like to bring information that is valuable to our community. And we like to talk about things that most people might not want to be open and transparent about. In today's show, we have a special guest, actually two guests. My business partner, Gina Capelli, my partner in crime, yeah, and Nathalie Gravagna. Natalie has a name that I have a hard time pronouncing, but Natalie is actually my personal friend, somebody that I admire, that I love. In the little bit of time that I've gotten to know her, I have tremendous respect for her as a woman, as a professional, as a mother, and I feel totally blessed to be able to have her here today. And I want to thank you, ladies, for the willingness to talk about something that is a taboo, that I think we've made progress, but I think we're not where we want to be. And we decided that today we are going to be transparent, we're going to be raw, we're going to be authentic with you. And I am going to stop and I'm going to let my business partner tell you her story.
So we understand how sexuality is something that is hidden. That's what they call it, coming out of the closet, right? So we have two perspectives here. We have a woman's perspective and we have a mother's perspective. So as a mom of my daughter, Erica, 28 years old, my daughter came out to me 3 years ago. I had no idea. She threw me for a loop. I didn't know how to react. My first reaction, first of all, let me say that she didn't know how to confront me. So the way she confronted me was wrong. And it was almost like I was just supposed to understand it, accept it, and I didn't understand. So what happens is that you automatically go into, oh my God, why me mode, and how could this happen to me mode? And I cried hysterically. I was angry. I had all these emotions, almost like I was in mourning, which is terrible. And when Erica, after we had gone through the initial shock for me, and we actually were able to discuss it, it was a little easier for me. Now, the first step for me is, I don't care if you're a male or female, I have to like you. I have to believe that you're right for my daughter. And the first interaction with her sexuality, I wasn't happy with the person. I didn't like her, I didn't think she was right for her. And thank goodness that relationship ended. But she actually found her life's partner, and she's getting married. They just got engaged in Italy, and I am accepting of it. I am totally in love with Kayla, her partner, and I really, really support the relationship. But I have to tell you, in the very beginning, it was very hard for me to say that. I spoke. Actually, Maria joined me in 2015, and I had just learned about this, and I talked her ear off for months, crying, right? Hysterically crying.
You were, one of the things that I remember, you were in denial. You said, no, she's not. Right. I don't think she is. Right. She's thinking that she is, but at one point she liked to be with a man. So I think she's just confused, and this is a stage that. And I remember you having these conversations with me.
I was actually battling with myself.
Right.
And the truth is that if she is or if she isn't, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. She is happy. She's in a great place. Her and I are closer than ever, which is amazing for me. And and I have to support my daughter for no matter what it is or how difficult it is, because at the end of the day, it's not my life. It's not my life. And the first thing that you always think of is, what are people going to say? How am I going to invite people to a party, an engagement party? I want the white picket fence and the good-looking husband but you know what? I got news for you. That ain't the way it is nowadays. And with my daughter and her significant other, I'm happy for them. I can't wait to plan the engagement party. I can't wait to plan the wedding. But I know how difficult it is for moms. And I'm talking as a mother's perspective. Her father, on the other hand, we're divorced. And he is difficult. But I was so proud of him.
Yeah.
The way I never thought that he was going to accept it. But the way he embraced it, and he said, you know what? It's either I have my daughter or don't. And I choose to keep her and to have her in my life. And that for us, you know, first of all, for me, that was so special because I love the relationship that my daughter and my ex-husband have now. And it took a while to get there. But to be open and to understand that this isn't about me. You know, this is not about your parents. This is not about someone else's, not about my daughter's partner's parents. This is about them. It's about you. It's about them. And that's the important thing. And I think that in hindsight, parents want the best for their kids. And they think about, and I got news for you, and I hate to say it like this, but this religion crap of, you know, what God says it is. Our Pope nowadays is the coolest Pope. I met him firsthand. He is the coolest Pope, and he is, believe it or not, he is for love. He is not what the old Catholic Church used to be like, and that's why I love this Pope most of all. But you know what? I don't believe in the thing. Well, it's not accepted. It's not part of the Catholic Church. You know, you have your beliefs. People have their beliefs, and then your children have their own, and you have to respect that. But parents, I know, give up their kids because of something like this. They think it's taboo, and it's not. And I have to tell you, and I want to hear your story, because I'm sure that the things that you say are going to touch exactly the way I felt. But I'm hoping that you have a happy ending. So, I mean, a lot of kids don't have a happy ending, unfortunately.
I have to say I have a happy ending for myself, you know, because I've learned that above all, what's most important is to learn to love yourself and accept yourself, because your happiness has to come before anything else. I didn't have the happy ending with my relationship with my parents, unfortunately, but I grew up in a very religious household. I was an example in my congregation. I gave Bible studies. I knocked on people's doors every Saturday. I had a very close family relationship with my mother, with my father. Every Monday was family day. Every Friday, we did something as a family together. We built tons of memories. Seemingly the perfect life, right? And as I grew older, though, I mean, as a young kid, I always had an issue with the status quo and equality and what that really means and what why people put an actual meaning to equality and social norms. I had an issue with that. At the age of 8, I wrote a story about loving yourself no matter what, and it won an award by the Board of Ed.
Wow.
So I was very passionate about just learning more about people and not putting rules on everything, right?
Don't label it.
Exactly.
That's what my daughter says.
Why are we labeling?
Don't put a label on it.
Yeah. So then at the age of 14, I realized I was falling in love with somebody for the first time, and it was not the norm. And I felt the biggest shame I've ever felt in my life. I would come home every day and pray, and basically I was not being very nice to myself. I thought I was the worst person ever, and I didn't know, God's not going to love me. That's what we learn in church, this happens, you have to change it, and if you don't change it, God's not going to love you. You're not going to get accepted. So I tried my best for a whole year to change it. Read the Bible. I came out to my parents finally when I realized that those feelings weren't going away, and this girl and I were getting a little more serious. And that did not go over very well. So I was sat down with a lot of religious leaders to try to take that away from me. It's a sin. You're not supposed to feel the same way for the same sex. And I accepted that guidance from people that are supposed to guide you in the right direction. I thought, you know, I was condemned to go to hell, or we didn't really believe in hell, but condemned to not live in God's way. And one day I just woke up and I said, this can't be God, because God made me this way. God made me this way, and I'm trying everything possible, and these feelings are not going away, and I want to be happy. So my parents looked at me and said, well, if you want to live that life, then that's the door. And
How old were
I
you?
left, 15.
15 years old.
15 years old. And I left. And it was a journey and a half after that. I lived, I could tell you, I traveled, I joined a theater ensemble group. You know, in my religion, we were very closed. It's very like a cult. We only hung out with people in our religion. We weren't allowed to hang out outside of that. So going into this new world was very different. I didn't even have school friends at that time. So going into this world was like, it was scary. But I was also excited to be able to live my full life. And I traveled, I think I lived in almost every state.
How did you manage that?
I homeschooled myself. I lived in Massachusetts for a little bit, tried to go to school there. The girlfriend that I had at that time left her house, moved in with me, and I worked 3 jobs, lived off a backpack, joined a theater ensemble group, joined a dance group, and just traveled all over and tried to find myself. But it was painful, because there were times where you need your mom.
Especially the holidays, I would assume that.
There are times where, you know, my first even time experiencing sex, per se, you know, I always imagined myself calling my mother and saying, oh my God, you know, like, am I supposed to feel this? And I had no one. There were many times where there was one particular time where I was homeless. I was in the street and taken in by a family who I still am very close to today, who it's my mother, because I know you're watching. And I was in such a deep depression that I lived in a little garage that I rented for $600 a month. And I was in such a deep depression at one point, I didn't leave my house for 3 days. And I didn't eat, I was just in bed. And my sister, Gabby, was knocking on the door, and she's like, you need to get out. I know you're not well. And I said to her, I don't want to speak to anyone. Her and her mother broke down the door with food and pots and pans, and they were like, you need family, and we're going to be your family. And they took me out of that place, and they said, you're gonna move in with me. So much so that I moved in with them. I started going to school again, and I decided to get a tattoo one day, and she grounded me. So she really
she really took the role of a mother.
But you know, I've been through it, and now as I'm older, I try to think about what my mother was going through as well, because so many years of holding on to anger and resentment. Like, I'm a mother now. I can never imagine letting my child out in the world. I can't. And for years, my mother and I have not spoken, and I recently reconnected with her. And finding the understanding and the compassion, finding the compassion to understand what she might have been going through at that time, accepting a daughter who's gay in a world where you're already Hispanic, you're already a woman, you know, you're a minority in all sense of the word, and now you're throwing in, oh, by the way, I'm gay, you know? As a mother, now I understand you only want the best for your children, right? You don't want them to suffer. So I can only imagine the turmoil she was going through, also being a religious woman and believing that she was doing right by what God wanted her to do. And it takes a lot of compassion and understanding to be able to forgive that, but I think that I I am in a state in my life where I'm willing to accept that we all have our own stories.
And how many years has it been since you left the house?
I'm 33 now.
Okay, so it's 18 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
And there was no connection between you and her?
No connection. There was brief connection when I found out I was pregnant, and I again chose to love myself. At least at that point, that's what I thought I was doing, because my mother would not accept me going into the house with my partner. She would only accept my daughter going into the house, and I said either you accept all of us or you accept none of us, and I was very firm in that. And up until recently, because of family tragedy, did we reconnect.
That's a unbelievable story, you know, and I got news for you, it's probably the norm. You know, especially, 18 years ago, I don't know what I would have done 18 years ago, but it's like, I think that was the norm. And the right and wrong, and what's right and what's wrong, the thing is that there is no right or wrong. There is no right or wrong.
Right.
You know, it's everybody, and you know what, and like you said, God didn't say, okay, I'm going to do this to you to condemn you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's part of life now, and it's a very regular part of life that I'm finding. You know, and this is going to sound really ridiculous, but one of my biggest fears when Erica came out was that I was going to lose her. And why was I going to lose her? Because she would stop hanging out with her friends. She would start hanging out with different clique of people, of lesbians and gays. And I was afraid that I wasn't going to fit into that world and I was going to lose her. And with the first one, it started to happen, which fulfilled my life exactly like I had said. She's hanging out with different people. She's never home. She's fighting with me all the time. And then once that she got into this relationship that she's extremely happy in, they all have the same friends from high school. They're still hanging out. They're over at my house for dinner. Like last night, I had them over for dinner. They're with her mom, and I love her mom, her family. So it's very different now, but that was my biggest fear, is losing her. So for me to say, I can't have you in my life because of your choices, isn't the same as losing her?
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. That's interesting, because there's a negative relationship to the LGBT community. It's almost like this is a depressed community with a high level of suicide, and as a parent you're afraid because we're taught you are who you surround yourself with, right? Your friendships and the people that you surround are important, so as a parent you worry about that, but that is something we created.
Yeah.
So until we start accepting that it is okay to be who we are, and the bravery of women like you to accept their daughters and their sons is what's creating a better environment for the LGBT community. It's creating an environment where, maybe the suicide rate will start to drop because now there's acceptance.
Yeah.
And it's okay to be who you are. You don't have to hide.
And Natalie, I would be the first to be an advocate for moms, and try to speak out for the moms and say, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? You have this beautiful life that you created, and you're just gonna give it up like that? You're just gonna give it up because of a personal choice? It's not like you're on the streets and you're doing heroin and you can't get out of the drug. You're living a normal, full, and very successful life. You have to weigh that out.
I agree. You said something that I find that is extremely important to recognize, which is what I know for sure. You said it differently, but I think of Oprah Winfrey's book, What I Know for Sure, and she talks about what she knows for sure, but there was so much that she did not know for sure that she thought she was sure she knew. And I love that, because when, you even talked about your mom, you said, well, did I do the right thing by not reaching out and allowing her to have my daughter and her granddaughter? I stopped 10 years of memories, right? Because I thought I knew that for sure. And being open-minded, I think, is something that we need to all learn. As I get older, I feel so blessed at this stage because I am so open-minded. I don't feel that I know everything, for sure. And I was talking to my son the other day. I was having dinner with him, and I said, Jeffrey, you know what? What I knew when I was 20, and if you ask me now, I would say, I knew for sure at the age of 20. But I really, now,
You realize that you didn't.
I didn't.
Right.
Life is a revolving, it's weird. It's the time is just, it's an experience. It's changing daily, weekly, monthly, and we have to be open. And the other thing that you talked about that I love is the fact that you are looking at forgiving, right? And you're opening your mind and you're reconnecting with your mother and you want to forgive because you're trying to understand her struggles, right? As what she was dealing with the religion and all of that. And even though it's difficult to understand that at the age of 15, you let your daughter go, but she had her own struggles that she couldn't deal with. But I love the fact that you are reconnecting and that you're finding, you have a chance to create now memories for you with your daughter, and that you are allowing your heart to be forgiving. Because I think there is a lot of anger in when the families find out when the kids are coming out. There is so much anger with the parents and the kids, right? They have to struggle, and my heart goes out to this community because you're trying to be something that you're not, because it's what society represents, tells you need to be. And you have to do this for your family, and you know that you're going to be rejected most likely by your parents. And how painful is that? So we talk about, with families that people that we know that they are experiencing this, and we say, what is more important? Do you want to have your child? Do you want to, if you don't accept your child, you are contributing to the rejection that everyone brings into this community. We need to change that. We're human beings. We're individuals. We're people. We're human beings.
I think that the problem is, is that they do weigh it so heavily on the church.
Right.
And they believe that it is evil and that it's wrong. And, if they could rewrite the Bible in some fashion, they should. Because in my heart, and I'm sure in God's heart, is everybody was created equal. So it's almost like, well, if you're black or white or yellow or green, you're all created equal, but not if you're gay. If you're gay, you're not created equal, you're somebody else and you should be burned in hell. It's like they need to come up to date with what's happening in this world.
Well, I always say that I'm a Lutheran, and I'm a practicing Lutheran, and I've had conversations with some pastors about this, and I say, I struggle with the fact that they say that you're sinning. We sin every day. I'm a sinner, you're a sinner, you're a sinner.
We're born with a sin.
We are born with the sin.
Yeah. Who's to say what sin is greater than the other?
Right. It's so how can I judge and how could I say you're a sinner when I know that I sin? No matter how much I try not to, we are sinners.
Now, I would like to ask a question.
Yes.
And I know that I've posed this to you once before because I'm going to be facing this soon, right? Mm-hmm. And it's your daughter. How do you handle your daughter not being bullied or not being, having issues in school with friends, having two
Great
moms?
question.
So, my daughter is the light of my life. She is smart. If you've ever had a conversation with her, and she will surprise you with the things that come out of her mouth. But I knew my lifestyle was never going to be a conventional one. And I still wanted to be a mother. So when I had her, I understood that I was going to have to build this child up to the point where she's going to feel comfortable enough to confront whoever and feel confident in her life and secure. And in order to do that, I worked really hard to create a strong family foundation for my daughter, where she had a safe place at home. And I feel that that's what all children need in general. Even us as adults,
Yes.
we need a strong foundation at home. And we built that for her, to the point where one time somebody asked her, wait, you have 2 moms? And she was, yeah, 2 moms. and the kid was like, but that doesn't make any sense. Where's your dad? And she's like, no, I don't have a dad. But you know, some people have 2 moms, some people have 2 dads, some people have a mom and a dad, some people have no mom and dad. But I'm lucky, I have 2 moms. You know?
Wow.
And she's always been that kid. And I remember her being small and knowing, oh my God, I need to send this little warrior out to the world that's going to discriminate her for
Yes.
so many reasons. And we would make her stand in front of the mirror and talk back to whoever told her anything. From the age of 3, she would go to preschool, and if somebody, took her pencil, we would practice at home in front of the mirror. What are you gonna tell that person the next time they take your pencil? That wasn't very nice. And we would practice, and as she got older, the conversations became a lot more serious. And she was bullied for having 2 parents, 2 moms, and she's never come home and cried about that. She's cried more about, Mom, today they said that my skin color is too dark, than she has about, I have 2 moms, because she is so proud of that. There's nothing to be ashamed of.
I have to tell you that I've had the privilege of spending a lot more time with your daughter, and she is some special.
And then what Natasha said.
And Natasha asked, you have 2 moms? And she said, yeah, I have 2 moms. And Natasha was like, oh, she has 2 moms. And I said, yeah, she has 2 moms. But it was like, okay, that was it.
Okay, right.
And I think it's changing. I think definitely it's changing. But you have created such a strong character with your daughter that she's able to handle any bullying. And I can see that because she's very articulate. She's a grown-up. I mean, this kid is unbelievably bright.
Wait, are you the older sister?
So you have done an amazing job with her, and that is, whether you are a couple, a man and a woman, or a woman and a woman, or a man and a man, the most important thing is the values that you give to these children,
And
the foundation and the love that you give to these children. How many people are husband and wife and they're abusing their children?
Yeah.
They're hurting their children.
Yeah.
It's really, I mean, if you think about it, that foundation, the home foundation, needs to be the right foundation for these children.
Vital.
And you have definitely built that.
And I have to say, one of the most important things that we decided to do with her as well is at the age of 6 years old, she started going away to sleepaway camp. I believe in community, right? So the more people you surround yourself that are understanding towards your situation, the better you're going to be accepting of yourself and others. So there's this amazing camp up in Pennsylvania for kids that have same-sex parents. And at the age of 6 and all the way till now, her favorite time of year is August 19th, when she gets to go over to camp and sit with other kids that have same-sex parents, and where it becomes the norm. She's like, this is okay, I'm not alone.
Do they talk about it?
They talk about it. They do things like sit around a fire and write down on a piece of paper all the emotions that you're feeling, and then throw that in the fire. And there's something really powerful about that, and then she comes back with all these activities, and we continue those activities at home so that she feels safe. So it's extremely important to go out there and look for a community just like yours and find that support. I think that's what makes strong children and strong parents, because I couldn't do it alone. I'm very lucky that I had people that love and support me despite everything I've been through, because there were times where I didn't love and support myself. I didn't believe in myself, but because others looked at me and said, you are amazing. you know, and you need that sometimes. Finding that support is extremely important.
And you know what, everybody needs that.
Yeah.
Not just you, because of your sexuality.
Yeah,
But
everybody.
isn't that funny? But you need it so much more for the acceptance. But yet you've decided to love yourself more, like you said, and you accept yourself. And you know what? Whether we like it or not, whether we like it or not, everybody should be the same way, and they should be proud of who they are, and be happy with their own skin. You know what? And stand up with your head held high.
Do you feel that we have become a society that is more acceptable now?
Just wait, before you say anything, I know that we're running out of time, but we're going to continue because we think this is such an important topic that we're not going to stop at 6:30, so hopefully everyone will continue to watch. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Do you feel that society as a whole is changing? That
I feel that we've come a long way. We've come a long way from 18 years ago, for sure, where it was, you couldn't even speak about it. You had to hide. But I feel that we have a long way to go. We have a really long way to go. And you go through different stages in your life. You know, I went through the stage of, okay, my parents don't accept me, now I need to accept myself. And that was a long journey. Then, you're still going through life. You're still a woman, you're still a mother, you're still, I started a business, and now I'm a businesswoman, and you throw all these stressors on. And every time you go through a different stage in your life, you uncover how your sexuality plays into that, right? So being a businesswoman in a man's world, I work a lot with construction people. I found myself, after being very open about being gay, then I found myself hiding again when I opened up my business, because my business was of the utmost importance to me, and I had a passion and a mission in life, and I was going to fulfill it, and I was not going to let, in my head, I wasn't going to let my sexuality get in the way of that. But again, I had to relearn that lesson of, no, you need to be authentic, and then everything else falls into place.
Well, do you feel like it's part of the criteria? Or are you married? Are you divorced? I mean, when you get a job, it's not like you're the topic of conversation that you're gay.
But it's funny because usually if I ask you if you're a straight person, you assume that you're with.
Are you single?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so
you have a boyfriend?
Where's your boyfriend? Who's your husband? So you're looking at the ring in my finger. Oh, what does your husband do?
Right.
And that question for me became extremely difficult to answer. Especially, I worked and this was extremely powerful. Most of my clients were or are Hasidic Jews. And I was very, very afraid of speaking out, right? Until one day I just said it to one of my clients. I said, yes, no, that's my wife. And she looked at me and she said, you are so much cooler than I thought you were now. And at that time, it was like this weight was lifted. Like, I was hiding this. Why?
Yeah.
Why? When here's a very religious person who I would assume was going to condemn me for it. And she's saying, wow, you are brave. And at that point, I realized I don't have to hide it anymore. And I started being very open in my business about myself.
Who you are. And it's funny because that religion is very, the women are
Exactly.
ruled.
Yeah.
And so they're the lock and key. So for someone like you, I'm sure she looked at you like, wow, like proud.
You're being authentic.
Yeah,
being
plus, they couldn't, if they wanted to, because I don't think they would let themselves, take that step, because it's such a drastic step in that religion.
Gina, let me ask you, parents out there that are watching this and they're struggling because they have a feeling that maybe their kids, or their teenagers or, adult kids are gay, and they're struggling inside to accept them. What would be your advice to them?
Oh my God, you have to look at your child. Think of your child when your child was just born. Think of the love that you have for that baby when you look in their eyes, and you can feel them touch your hand and hold your finger. The love that you have for that child, it shouldn't change because of sexuality. It shouldn't. It's still the same child that you bore, and it's so important, I think, for me, that I I am all about family. I'm all about family, and my daughter is the most, like you, is the most important thing to me in this world. And I will never break that bond, ever. Although, like I said, although it was tough, you know,
Yeah.
it was just,
It's the
but I had
process,
said to
right?
her, you have to give me time. And that's what I say openly, you have to give your parents time. And in my eyes, if you had gone into your mom's home with your daughter, without your partner, and been able to let her understand the family, maybe it would have sped it up a little bit more, maybe your partner would have been accepted into the household. I don't know, you know, because I don't know your mother. But, you know, to see the unity, to see what you created, you know, and how together this little girl is, it's really important. I think it's really,
Yeah.
really important. So you can look at both ends of the coin saying, would it be the right thing if I had done that or not? I mean, you make your own choices, and I think your choices are
So
very-
I'm going to ask you, Natalie, the same question. What would you tell parents out there that are struggling with this?
What would I say? I would say read a lot, inform yourself, because I think that most parents are stuck on religion, right? The older, especially when you're a first generation coming out as a first generation American, which was me, you know, your culture comes with a whole set of beliefs. But I feel if you inform yourself and you look for other parents that are also dealing with the same situation,
Get support.
that support is key. That support is key. And have open lines of communication. Don't, you know, we already feel inadequate enough as a society with all these social norms and the rules that society puts on us. We don't need parents to also add to that. Instead, your home should be your safe haven where you're
Right.
able to work through those problems, work through those emotions, and still feel connected. And I think that just by finding support, a lot of heartache would be avoided.
It's a very scary, scary thing for a parent when they first come out. It's very scary.
And I think you need to be able to give yourself time.
Yes,
Like,
absolutely.
Time with everything in life.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just that that's important. And I think, you know, one of very important questions to kids out there, to women, to men that are struggling with their sexuality and in struggling with who they are and they're acting out something that they're not, what would be the most powerful message you can give them?
Who are acting out.
That you know, they're being something they're not because they're afraid to come out.
I believe that, I think in our society we believe that weakness, being vulnerable is a weakness, right? It's being able to come out and tell someone who you are truly is a weakness. It's seen as a weakness. But I believe that weakness lies in the fear of rejection and not being true to yourself. There is a freedom that comes after, regardless of who accepts you and who doesn't, there's a freedom that comes with being true to yourself and loving who you are. And there's no person in the world, not your parents, not you know, not anyone that can provide that freedom for you. You can only provide that freedom for yourself. And once you do that, everything else will come. Everything else will fall into place.
And I think that what you're saying is very true, and I also think that not only should parents seek help, but I think the child should seek help. How to approach your mom or dad, how to do it, because it's not something that can be just.
And I'm sure there's a lot of support out there,
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
people can get the support.
There's a lot of LGBT centers. I joined almost each and every one of them, traveling around the United States. Find people like you. It's so important, so you don't feel alone.
Well, this was extremely powerful. I am truly touched always when people are willing to be vulnerable for the sake of helping others. And that's what you guys just did today. And I am proud to have you as my business partner, my friend, my sister. Proud of how raw you are, you know, because you know you're touching someone's life out there. And I thank you for that too. In Nathalie, I feel like you're my daughter, you know, in the little bit of time that I've met you. But I am so touched with your story. I am so proud of your accomplishments. And this is just the beginning for you, girl, because you are on a path that is unstoppable. Nothing is going to stop you. I know that. I know that. You are powerful. And I thank you for sharing and touching people's life out there, because people I know have been touched by you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. Remember to like us. And we will be back on Monday with another great show. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.